Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to another episode of An-Nisa Collective podcast. My name is Samia. I'll be your host today to discuss a very, very interesting topic and perhaps to a certain extent frustrating for some people and often complicated. But to help me do that, inshallah, I have with me Nayab. Assalamu alaikum, Nayab.
Walaikum assalam.
How are you doing?
Alhamdulillah, I'm good today and interested to see where this topic takes us.
Yes, definitely. So am I, inshallah. We've kind of swapped roles today. Normally you tend to be the host and I'm on the guest side, but the reason we did that is because the topic today is all about finding a suitable spouse for marriage and the challenges around that. And I
Yeah.
just felt that, well, maybe I'm being too presumptuous, but you're at that age
Mm-hmm.
where you're looking to get married, and even if you're not, perhaps there's people around you in your social circle who are looking to get married.
Yeah.
Maybe it's been easy for some people, maybe it's been difficult. How is that journey going, do you think, from your perspective?
Yeah, no, I think it's definitely difficult. I look, there's a lot of sisters around me my age, so like mid 20s, early 20s and late 20s to be honest, and a lot of brothers. Um and yeah, it does seem like a bit of a struggle. I mean, I think my parents have been looking since I was in my early 20s. And yeah, you get a bit of momentum, and then all of a sudden I hear nothing, and then I'm like, what's going on, mom, dad? Like, and I do want to go through that route of them finding someone first. I just think for me personally, I'd rather have someone that they're happy with, that they have conversed with the parents with first, and then come into the mix, rather than I know a lot of Muslims are quite proactive these days because it is hard, and some people are lucky enough to find someone themselves. I'm not in that situation, so yeah, no, definitely difficult for a number of reasons, in my community, and for myself, I think as well.
Let's go into that because I do get that general sense of difficulty for people in that
Mm,
generation looking for spouses, simply because I do get, for example, WhatsApp messages for like matrimonial type services where people in the community try and set up an event where you
yeah.
come well, you have to kind of enter kind of like your marriage CV type details,
Hmm.
age and that kind of thing, and they come and they try and match people beforehand, and they try and get you basically to meet. So it's almost like a table that people keep turning around,
Yeah.
to just have a quick conversation to see if there's any compatibility there. And the fact that that's happening, and that's something I would say fairly new in our community. It didn't exist certainly in my time. I mean, I'm in my
Mm.
mid 40s now. That's not how we found spouses, but I guess because of the challenges that people are facing now, this has become a somewhat temporary solution. I don't know. I don't know how to phrase it, but let's go into why do you think there are so much difficulty in finding a suitable spouse in for your
Mm.
generation in particular?
I think there's the positive side and the negative side. So I'll start with the positive, which is I do think that there's a huge cultural element in how maybe marriages were done, in my parents' generation, and it didn't work for everyone. In my parents' case, alhamdulillah, they were matched, and it couldn't probably have been any better match if you, I mean, my mom and dad.
Yeah.
Obviously difficult, very strong personalities, both of them, but alhamdulillah, it worked, and it was done Islamically in the fact that they both were happy and consented to the marriage, and um, they trusted each other's. So my mum's granddad, my great granddad, was the one who organized the rishta, and my mum trusted his opinion, and
Mm.
same with my dad, who knew my mum's, or my great granddad. And then you have the other side of people, especially in this country, weirdly enough, in that generation, being forced into marriages. And I think parents don't want that for their kids. I also think that there's always the thing with parents where they're scared that if something goes wrong in the marriage, that their kids will turn around and say, well, I didn't choose them. You made
Yeah.
me marry this person. Whether it was, a little gentle nudge, and the child just being wanting to make their parents happy, and again trusting in that decision, it, that happens. So I think parents and children alike are being a bit more careful in our generation, and are a bit more picky, which can be a positive, and are trying to do it the most halal way possible, where both people are in the right mindset to get married. I think the negative is, though, I think we just have gone too far in what we want in our spouses. I think we just expect like way too much sometimes. And also, I don't think a lot of young people feel ready to get married. I'm talking like, and this process, obviously, if you do it um in this way, meeting someone, being chaperoned, it takes time. It's not,
Mm,
and you don't, it's not a natural relationship that you form, for example, with colleagues or friends or people you interact with. It's a setup, so it's gonna take time. And I don't think people allow that. By the time some people feel ready to get married, you know, the community saying, "Oh, it's too late. They're too old now," and even like finding a spouse who's suitable, because you're going to want someone who's at the same age as you, or maybe a bit older if you're a woman. Um, yeah, it's the pool just gets smaller and smaller and smaller. So
yeah.
yeah, I think there's both sides.
Let's delve into that a bit more. So you're saying with the cultural traditional approach, it was basically hit and miss. And
Yeah,
if it was a hit, that's great, fantastic, alhamdulillah. And where it was a miss, it was quite bad. And it then led to people reacting as opposed to responding in a way where now we've got a new problem, which is that if you want to do things the halal way, but then the parents don't want to have a big say, the kids are struggling to find somebody by going against the natural strains of social interaction, if you like.
mm.
But then this other compounding factor, which is that you mentioned people aren't ready to get married. Let's break that down. What do you have to do to be ready to be married?
And I don't understand. I don't know. I think it is because the point I made about the parents is, I think like kids grow up and they see the relationship their parents have, and because it maybe it was compatible in the sense that it was good for two families, they came from the same similar background, and so in that sense it made sense. But personality wise, or they just weren't maybe compatible or fit for each other, and that translates, especially if you're raising kids. So I think that the kids, probably more than anything, are more attuned to that, and don't want, which sounds awful, but don't want their parents' marriage to reflect on their marriage, and they want different things, which I understand. But I don't always think that if the parents have had the cultural marriage, they either go one way and, yeah, don't want anything to do with it, or go the other way and are wanting to um put the same thing that happened to them onto their kids, not seeing how the kids might feel about that. And so I think that's why some the I don't want to say excuse, because I don't know what certain people are thinking, but the natural thing to say then is, no, I'm not ready for that. And whether that's, I'm not ready for an arranged marriage, or I'm not ready for my parents to put someone in front of me and me have to say yes or no. I think that's what people mean, is they're not ready to go through that. We're especially in this country, um, you know, well, generally in society, you're so used to forming those natural relationships. Then the idea of, oh God, now I just have to sit down with someone and, um, have a conversation with the outcome that we could possibly get married. I think that's what frightens people. Um,
Mm,
but which I do understand. It was even the first time I spoke to someone, I was like, right, this is weird. But I think for me, once I just, well, I'm quite a rational person, rationalized it and thought, how did they do it? This has been happening for years and years and years. Islamically, it's the best way, I think, and even like practically, to find someone, because you get all of the stuff that's important out the way in the first meeting, right? Because there's things that us as people are non-negotiable. For me, it would be that I would want to work inshallah maybe for the first few years, If we have kids, inshallah, then no, I do want to stay at home. But I wouldn't, if someone said to me, you're not allowed to work, full stop, I think that would be a bit of a red flag for me. I'd like the option to, but I'm also happy to stay at home and do the housework. It's just the um being told that I can't do something like work. I think that's a thing for me that I need. I need to keep busy. So depending on my circumstance. So if someone said, no, I do want someone who's just going to stay home, um, that would maybe be something for me where I'm like, oh, I'm not sure about this person. Or we've had a few actually where they've wanted maybe a bit more of a important one. They've wanted to move away, and I don't just mean like locally. I mean like across the country. For us, that's I can't do that. So I think in my mind, that's how I approached it, and I thought, um, you hear so many relationships, um, in this country of people who have been dating for like 5, 10 years, sometimes even get married and they just fall apart because
Mm.
it's not based on it's just it's the emotional thing. It's not as soon as they start living together and actually looking at their life ahead, they just want totally different things. So I think, yeah, people, it's hard to have that. It's hard to know what you want as well. I think a lot of Muslim young people don't actually know what they want. They don't
Yeah,
know
there's
what they
no
want.
clarity.
No, they don't know
There's
what
no
they want
clarity.
from. They don't understand the importance, first of all, of marriage and how much of a blessing it is, um, and like why it's you complete half your deen if you get married, or why,
Mm.
first of all. Um, And I think there's just a lot of like people are just scared. There's a lot of unknowns. I don't think that parents always talk to kids about it. Especially again, you're coming from a cultural place where um girls aren't allowed to talk to boys their whole life, and then all of a sudden it's like, no, oh, here you go, get married. It's like, what? You haven't allowed me to interact with people of the opposite sex my entire life, and now you expect me. And they're like, well, why haven't you met anyone yet? Sorry? I've heard that before, and I'm
Yeah,
like, I don't understand how you expect this to work. But
it's a
yeah, no, I
vicious
did make I
circle. It's a vicious, it sounds like it's a
yeah,
vicious circle because there's a lot of reactions to previous
100%,
circumstances and
100%.
situations. There's a lot of things that are new in the current generation. For one, I just my ears pricked up when he said, "Well, I can't move away," and
I can't.
it's
Oh,
but
that's
but
just
what?
something for me.
But the thing is, in the not so distant past, people didn't even raise these as issues. And
Yeah, I know.
if the husband had to move for work or whatever, you would just pick up your bags and follow your husband.
Mm,
It wasn't on the cards that were dealt before the marriage took place. It People just, I think, from my experience and experience of people that I know, they just look for compatibility on other levels, right?
mm,
Like for example, maybe professional backgrounds, maybe societal status, ethnic backgrounds, maybe that kind of thing, and obviously the deen. But beyond that, it was like, okay, whatever,
mm,
it's okay, like, and as the situation came, they would have to deal with it. So if the situation occurred, for example, like there's an economic recession and man's out of a job, the husband's out of a job, then they would have to then consider moving elsewhere, and that was a decision then they would sort out between them and then execute. Or for example, whether or not the wife can work again,
mm,
in the economic situation today, maybe some women before they got married, they had committed to the fact that they're not going to work, they're going to be
mm.
attached very much to the home, but because the economic situation has changed,
Yeah,
they've had to rethink all of that. But
yeah.
they've done that in a dynamic process as their lives in marriage have progressed. But now it seems there's this very defensive spouse hunting going on
Mm.
as a
Well, it's
reaction.
people have. Well, this is what I'm saying. Like for me, the moving away one was we'd had the discussion. I think my dad had spoken to the guy who lived in Saudi, which I'm fine, like, but the discussion had been had originally that he would move here, and that was sort of the way that we'd had the conversation and the way that moving forward that was the plan. And then he just changed his mind. Oh no, it would be 3 months. She'd come to Saudi. Okay, then it was 6 months. Then it was a year, and for him actually, it was he hadn't got his ducks in a row, but he made it sort of a, well, it's not happening unless she moves. So it wasn't
Right.
a, this is a discussion. This is a, we can work through it. I think that our personalities are compatible. It was one of the first things that was, but she has to move. And so actually I didn't really think we had the opportunity to see if our personalities were compatible. Or I think I spoke to him once, and then that
Mm.
conversation was had, and it was like, well, you've blindsided us a little bit here. I think that, like you said, people go into the process with a very robust list, and you're never ever gonna have everything on that list ticked off. I'm with you. I think that it's all about your person, because you can get through any problem or anything that comes your way if you have compatible personalities that can tackle that, and you just listen to each other, you have respect for each other, and um you mirror Islamic values. If you're a good Muslim, then inevitably, I still think that, we're all human and we all make mistakes, that you're going to be able to navigate a marriage a lot easier because your foundations are already
Yeah.
there. You
Yeah.
respect your spouse, you respect those decisions. The other thing is, like, yeah, like I said, people are shallow. Like, you get the picture through, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh no, people are like, oh no, I don't want to. And it's like, how, I honestly don't understand how you're going to spend the rest of your life, inshallah, with this person, and you're going to say no over a picture when you don't even know them, when in the long run that looks aren't even going to matter anymore. Like, when you really
Mm.
get down to it, you're going to have to, my dad said to me, when you meet someone, think to yourself, can I hear this person's voice the rest of my life, and can I, like, talk to this person for the rest of my life? That's what's going to be important. And I do find it very, this is why people find it so difficult, because the first sign of something, and it's tiny things, like they're not from the
Mm.
same caste as me, or you see the picture, or she's too dark, or he's too short, or why does that matter? Like, long term, how is his height gonna affect a marriage long term,
Well, let's talk
realistically?
about that. Let's talk about that. Why do these things matter then? Where has it all come from? Why do people have suddenly now a robust list? Why do people have a tick box exercise on the first meeting? Why is there so much superficiality when it comes to such a deep relationship?
Because
Commitment.
this is the media that we consume every day, about what the relationship is, and the sparks and love at first sight, and sparks fly, and you've got to be conventional. Like, the way I was thinking about this the other day, like how much of an importance beauty and conventional beauty is put on us as a society. And, like, this is a whole different point, but I'll just touch on it. Like, I was thinking about, they've just banned abayas in France, in
Yeah.
public places like schools and stuff, and obviously the hijab before that. And I just think, like, because as a society, as Muslims, we are rejecting a whole massive, um like, capitalism is run off the beauty industry, and feeding, and making people insecure in things that are perfectly natural to have as humans. um so when, as Muslims, you're in that society, you get brainwashed into, I need to have this a conventionally attractive man, and that's more important than everything else, because all of the TV shows, the movies, the media, it's all about beauty, and it's
Certain
just,
image.
yeah, but
Mm.
regular people don't look like that.
Mm. Mm.
And I just, it's hard to remove yourself from that. I totally, I do understand um wanting to have a bit of attraction, but I just don't understand how at the first stage of a rishta, and figuring it out, how you can reject someone based on that. Like, fine, my dad did say, I was asking him, because I haven't actually met many people And I was like, Dad, just out of interest, like, how many people have you actually like spoken to? Because he doesn't tell me otherwise. Like, I don't hear of it. Um, and he was like, yeah, quite a few. And I was like, well, why didn't it go anywhere there? And he was like, oh, a few of them, they were just, he's like, I felt they were just a bit old for you. I was like, fine, especially when I was in my early 20s. He was like, some of them, the pictures weren't good. And I was really shocked by that because I was like, Dad, that's so bad. That's awful. And he was like, no, 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 they definitely like either weren't the age that they said they were, or it wasn't, it was maybe like a bit of a misrepresentation of maybe what they were saying they were and who they were. And I was like, that's fine. I understand that. But that did make me chuckle a little bit. Because I was like, wow, even my dad's a bit shallow. No. And I get it, he wants the best for me, he doesn't want to, yeah. But no, the amount of people who I think it's happened to me where my profile's been sent through and then a picture of me is sent through and I'm not sending any fancy ones through. I think I send like ones without my makeup or just this is who I am because this is who you're marrying. You're not going to be marrying a doll who's all dolled up 24/7 and then yeah, just nothing back. And I'm like, fine, at least then that we've ruled out someone who maybe puts importance on things that we don't feel are as important.
Mm-mm.
Again, there's other things like cast. Oh, just again, I think it's the culture. Um, you
So
know,
when you say cast, let's just dissect that. Do you mean like being from the same professional background, ethnic background? What do you mean by cast?
no, so like the same ethnic, but so the same. Oh my God, what's the word? Like tribe.
Okay.
Like
Hmm.
literally going down to that level of
Hmm.
I need someone who's Pakistani, but I also need someone who's a Gujarat or Pathan or
Hmm.
again, you're just putting like it comes back to what we are saying about this list, like so many limitations on someone, and you're totally missing the important thing, which is are these two people going to get along?
Yeah. Yeah.
I also think that parents are a bit scared of that. Um, I think they're scared of the thought, this is going to sound crazy, but of like them getting along and there being some sort of attraction. I don't know what it is. Again, I think it might be cultural. But yeah, I just like it's yeah, it's hard to
It's a hard and it's a frustrating situation. I think, I mean, you touched on the hijab and well, the abaya ban in France, and obviously that has political reasons, but the implications of that is you don't actually see many people wearing that kind of attire, and therefore that stops becoming normal. And
exactly.
people then define normality according to like what you're saying, social media, even Disney cartoons, what a woman should look like, what a man
Yeah,
should be, etc. And those, yes, you're absolutely right. They impact and influence, and to a certain extent, they actually do define what you think is beauty. But like you say, the reality is that people are going to age and they're not going to look the same, are they,
mm,
forever? People may have disfiguring accidents. I mean, you don't know, what's going to
yeah.
happen. But
I think, and also you think about the amount of people in your life who, when you first met them, you had some sort of, what's the word? Everyone has makes assumptions about people when they first meet them, right? And you think a certain thing, and then as you get to know someone, those assumptions dissipate, and what they look like doesn't even
matter.
register. Yeah.
Mm,
Like I think
yeah.
when I was a kid, I had this massive, and when I say massive, I mean like awful like skin spot on my eye, like for most of my life. Probably like 5+ years. And finally, I got it removed. As a sort of finally a doctor would remove it because it was on my eyelid. No one wanted to remove it. And then the first, funny enough, female doctor we went to, she was like, yeah, fine, I'll do it. I went back to school. I was so happy. No one noticed. But
Mm,
these are people that I'd known for years and years and years at school who see me every day. This fat spot on my eye, no one noticed because
yeah,
that's not when they look at me, that's not what they see.
that's
It's
right.
how you act, it's your
Yeah.
personality, it's how they know you, and looks
Yeah.
just disappear. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think, but as people still, again, like I said, like the measure of success in this society is being beautiful and making lots of money. No,
Mm,
there's literally nothing. generally, if we're talking mainstream media and what's being pushed on, how you act, being
Yeah.
kind, all those being respectable, respecting your elders, all of that is just slowly disappearing from society.
Yeah,
And
I
so,
think that
of course, when people are looking for marriage partners, if they're constantly being bombarded with the message of money and beauty,
yeah, I think what
it's
then
hard
people
to.
revert to is this nonsensical list then that they have to go through, because what they're pursuing is so unrealistic that then they have
Mhm.
to fall back on this. And I think, yeah, because we're coming to time, I just want to bring some kind of closure, which is that we do as a society need to revisit the fundamental basis for why
Mhm.
we're even looking for somebody to get married. And
Mhm.
we have to really examine objectively what are the factors that are influencing our decision making process. When we do eventually get to meet somebody, to consider them for marriage. And at some level as well, we need to initiate how to tackle some of these cultural and traditional approaches, which they have their place, but we need to not use that as our basis, but to use Islam as our
Yeah.
basis. Because Islamically, yeah, okay, we are allowed to look at what ethnic background somebody comes from, but that really shouldn't be the determining factor
Yeah.
in making
Exactly.
the decision. I
Mhm.
can understand, for example, if someone speaks the same language as you, the families
Yeah.
can feel more
100%.
relaxed to get on, because language can be a barrier. But ultimately that doesn't make or break a marriage,
Yeah.
in all honesty. So I think, yes, as a community, definitely we do need to uh we need to challenge some of these bases, and go beyond the list, criticizing the list that people have, and look at
Mm.
why do people have a list, and look at, okay, look, we need to look at what marriage is actually all about, and what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala
Exactly.
tells us about it, what the Prophet ﷺ advised us when it comes to looking for a spouse. And that is very difficult in this day and age, because
Yeah.
Islam is very absent. So you're not gonna find somebody who is good, okay, based upon the criteria from Islam, because
Mm.
those kind of people just don't exist. We don't have that many Islamic personalities,
Mm.
and again, that itself has a fundamental reason. It's because we're surrounded and bombarded by ideas that don't come from Islam. So it's very hard then for somebody to emulate that as a person, and then that reflects in people not finding compatible people not finding
Mm.
nice people, and then people then ending up having this list because they think, okay, this is something that I can fall back on then, hopefully. But then even that doesn't work, and then people just react and come up with all sorts of other temporary solutions that it's a vicious cycle, basically, like we were discussing. But inshallah,
Yeah.
we will at some point discuss how to make relationships work, inshallah, and how to
Mhm.
start challenging some of the norms of society, inshallah. But until next time, I think we have to stop there, inshallah. Jazakallah khair so much, Nayab, for sharing some quite personal information, I think.
Mm.
But
No,
I'm
I
sure a
think,
lot of people can relate to it,
yeah, that's what
inshallah.
I think people, we don't talk about it. It's such like a shun topic of
Mm,
how hard it is. Everyone knows it's hard, but no one would talk to, what actually happens. And I think that's also half the problem is every parent, every young Muslim brother or sister is going into it alone,
yeah.
and they don't know the challenges that everyone faces. So hopefully by shedding some light on some of those examples, people can not feel so bad about their situation, or not feel like they're the problem. It's very easy to feel
Inshallah.
like that as well.
Yeah, no, inshallah. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy for all those people out there who are looking for suitable spouses. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless all of us with a very good spouse and help
Hmm.
us become stronger Muslims, inshallah, through the marital relationship. And until next time, we're going to end here, inshallah. Jazakallah khair so much for listening. Take care. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu alaikum.